Everyone is self-conscious about his or her physical appearance. As a culture, we obsess and worry about others noticing our flaws, and we seem to think that others will notice the smallest zit or the teeniest fashion faux pas. Yet research indicates that our preoccupation with changes in our own physical appearances is very egocentric. We will always presume that others notice as much as we notice about ourselves. The reality of human perception is that others are not nearly as likely to notice changes in our appearance as we are. Have you ever wondered why someone just didn't comment on your new haircut? It's unlikely that they were being rude or disliked it. They probably didn't even notice you'd gotten one. A phenomenon known as change blindness is responsible for these instances. The results of an experiment involving college students in sweatshirts conducted by Timothy J. Lawson in 2010 at the College of Mount St. Joseph demonstrates the discrepancy between what we think others notice and what they actually do.
With respect to change blindness, an average of only 12.89% of the observers in each change session accurately described the change in the target person's sweatshirt. Thus, the observers were largely blind to the change that occurred. However, we found that participants vastly overestimate people's ability to detect changes even when they are actively involved in the change situation and the change occurs to their own appearance. Although 13% of our observers noticed the change in their sweatshirt, target person's average estimate was 58%. Why does this occur? In Professor Richard Wiseman's book, Paranormality, Why We See What Isn't There, he explains that people believe that memory works like a camera or recorder, when in fact it is nearly the opposite. When people see a picture like the one used in our experiment, they assume that they see all of it at once in a single instance. In reality, your eyes dart from one place to another, adding details over time. Your brain also identifies what it assumes are the most pertinent details and glosses over the rest.
After reading Paranormality, we decided to conduct our own experiment of change blindness using two slightly varying images in the book of a man and a woman eating dinner. The foregrounds are identical, but the bar in the background shifts levels between the images. In the book, Wiseman asks the reader to try to identify the change between images by flipping between the two pages. Due to change blindness, it seems practically impossible to notice the difference. But to make sure it wasn't just us, we decided to put the image to the test.
Here is image 1 and image 2. Notice how the bar changes levels between the two images. We wanted to test whether or not participants would notice the difference between the two images if given 15 seconds to identify it. Before conducting our experiment, we asked our participants to fill out a brief survey and sign a release for filming. The survey asked for a class rank, gender, age, and major, as well as for a description of any vision impairments and learning disabilities. We also asked if the participant had previously read Paranormality so that we could discount anyone with prior knowledge of the change between the two images. The control group was presented with the two images side by side on a piece of cardboard and given 15 seconds to scrutinize the images for the one difference. The experimental group was presented with one image on one side of the piece of cardboard and the other on the other side and charged with flipping back and forth in order to identify the one difference in 15 seconds. This part was designed to replicate the experience of reading Paranormality and flipping back and forth between the pages. After 15 seconds, the boards were removed from the participants and they were asked to identify on their survey what they thought the difference was or if they could not identify it. The participants were given the opportunity to be told what the difference between the images was after they had completed the experiment, with the expectation that they not repeat the difference to any prospective participants.
But you see the bar?
Oh, it's higher.
Yeah. Okay. Would you like to know? Okay.
Now for our results. Surprisingly enough, even our control group indicates the phenomenon of change blindness. Only 4 out of 10 participants were able to identify that the bar moved between the images within 15 seconds, despite the fact that they could view the images next to one another. As anticipated, the experimental group had a smaller amount of participants that were able to identify the bar shifting between the images as they flipped back and forth. Only 2 out of 10 participants were able to identify that the bar moved between the images. We measured the central tendency of the age of the participants in each group and found them to be similar, which means that the makeup of each group was close. Additionally, each group contained 4 male participants and 6 female participants, which reflected the makeup of our school's student body, which is about 56% female and 44% male. This was a good sign since we forgot to consider stratified surveying techniques beforehand.
Our results indicate that change blindness is a real phenomenon, even within the control group. It turns out that the images we used are harder to tell apart than initially expected. Additionally, by any chance, did any of you notice that Daniel's shirt changed color about 5 times?
I thought something was off. Must be hindsight bias.
Additionally, I'm pretty sure that at some point his voice got significantly higher.
Gee willikers! Distractions were a problem. At one point during our experiment, the bell tower went off, so that participant probably had a harder time than the others.
Yeah, it's perfect right now. What is all that?
Additionally, we conducted our experiment with 2 of the participants in our room rather than the piazza, so they had a quieter location than the others. This also could have biased our data, although neither of them managed to identify the difference.
Then there was the perceived quality of our printer. Though to us, the images looked identical apart from the bar, we had some complaints.
I was distracted by the shittiness of your print. That's disappointing.
We'll be sure to take that into account.
I'm being recorded now, aren't I?
Yes.
The printer's not good.
We had a low N number. Our number of participants wasn't large enough to identify any existing correlation between majors and genders and ability to discern the difference. The larger the experiment, generally the more reliable the data is.
Also, we offered our participants candy as an incentive, so we might have biased our participants to only chocolate candy-liking people.
So basically, to do real science, we would need to conduct this experiment all over again with a larger group of people and in a quieter, more controlled environment.
Thank you for watching, and everyone go buy a copy of Paranormality, Whilst We See What Isn't There by Professor Richard Wiseman.
Still don't know what I was looking for. I'm a